Hello, Faustiest Witch of them all.
You
Are you
okay?
ready to do all sorts of Fausty nastiness today?
Why not?
Are you going to Faust all over everyone?
That sounds gross.
Okay. We played a little game earlier, right?
Did
We
we?
played a little game earlier with our friend, the consultant killer, right? It was MFK. MFK, right?
Yeah.
We're going to play the MFK game a little bit later, but first we got to start with the educational side of things, haven't we? Because didn't you
Suppose.
say something about a long time ago the format was supposed to be half an hour of education, half an hour of causing trouble?
No. Oh, possibly actually.
I think
That
you
does
pretty
sound.
much said that.
That does sound like something I would say.
Yeah. So we got to try and make this as educational as fucking possible, bearing in mind the subject matter for today. Okay. Subject matter for today is very important, but from a historical context, I think it's very relevant to today because of um, the culture we live in. Yes, culture of inclusivity, non-bullying, being nicey, not telling old people they look old, even if the wrinkles are so big that, well, you wouldn't be able to climb out of them if you fell in one of them, like the Grand Canyon. Um, where shall we start? What do you think today's topic is?
I imagine it's going to be something rude and about looks.
Luck? How is
No,
luck rude?
look,
Lux.
look.
Look. It's about looking. Oh, like psychic senses, all seeing eye, all that
No,
sort of shit, is it?
about
Was it
people,
you did
how
like that?
people
You
look,
did like that one, don't you?
about how
You do
people
like
look.
that. It's all about looks, is it today? Is that what you're all about?
Well, I'm assuming you're going to make it all about Bellamy boys again.
When do I ever make it about Bellamy Boys?
You make
I
it
don't think I've
always
ever
about
made a
Bellamy
show
boys.
about Bellamy Boys. I think what you'll find is that the people that watch the show in the comments write all about this Bellamy website that I've never been to. I assume is rather smutty though. And
How
look who brought
dare?
it up today anyway. Was it moi? No, it was
How
not. It was
how
you.
dare we?
It
How
was
dare
you.
you? How dare you lie to this audience, eh?
Hey, I drank that truth water. Remember
Yeah.
earlier, I cannot tell a lie. And because I drank truth water and cannot tell a lie, and the consultant killer can vouch for me there because she was the one that made me drink said truth water, I'm afraid I cannot be responsible for what comes out of my mouth today. Because
Oh, okay.
normally, you see, I would think about people's feelings and such. I would not say things that might be offensive in that, but I mean, we'd have to cancel the show we'd have to do this show where you just talk, Chris, and I won't be able to say anything because I've taken the truth serum, truth
Okay.
water, the blessed holy truth water that the consultant killer done made. And what is there to do? I mean, it's unfortunate that this subject happened to come up today after I'd taken the truth water, or I'd taken the truth water before or after. I don't know. Either way, people are going to be upset. I presume. You don't have to be a clairvoyant. You don't have to be able to see because you're all about the seeing, aren't you? You were saying
I
that
think
this
I'm
episode
probably I think I'm probably a clairvoyant.
avoidant. You avoid people called Claire.
No, she stalked me down. She found
Ooh,
me
she
in Oxford the other week.
did. She did. She sucked you into Oxford. Yeah,
Stalked. I was stalked.
stalked, proper stalked. Were you looking in a cabinet in the Pit Rivers, and did she tap on your shoulder or something? How did it happen?
I was sat taking a rest,
You
and she
needed to
came
sit
out.
down,
And she
or were
came
you
out of
drawing?
this. Yeah, and she came out of the stairwell.
What, just like emerged out of the stairwell?
Yeah,
Some sort of secret passageway that the people
maybe.
that haven't been, only the witches know that visit the Pit Rivers Museum, that there's a secret passageway in
Maybe.
the staircase. Is that what you're talking about?
Maybe. And then
We're
she
just
came over and
talking.
she was like, "So where are all the shrunken heads, Leah? Chris? I came all this way to see the shrunken heads," and I was like, "They've taken them away."
Did we have to give them back to the tribes and such we stole them from? Was that what
Apparently
happened?
so.
Or are they just struggling for funding and sold them all?
No, they returned them to the owners.
Ugh, damn. How do you feel about that?
Owners.
How do you feel about that? All these things that we've categorized and put tags on, put in nice cases, keeping them nice, and, you know, being sent away again. How do you feel about that as someone that came from, well, you're old, very historical for one, and also from the perspective that you've worked in museums and in that sort of, with dead bodies and mummers and shit? What's your personal take on it?
You know I don't like it. I'm of the feeling that we draw a particular line, and I think that particular line that should be
Around all
drawn.
the things you like, and anything
No,
outside of that line, they can just give it away.
no. I think productive conversation should be had
Mm.
with cultures that still exist and
Ah,
practice that way. I
right.
don't think you get to claim something that is, bearing in mind these aren't on display in like a rude, they're not drinking out of the skulls of people. Like,
Mm.
these are educational institutions that are there in order to share. Um, there is enough history to go around for
Mm.
them to still be on show.
Mm.
Um, this kind of reductive argument about saying that we should send everything back because we've stole everybody's culture. You're like,
Mm.
no, there is culture still in the countries that we've stole things from.
Mm.
Um,
We just stole the good stuff, the gold stuff.
so one, and it's not even that. We don't even necessarily have the best examples,
No.
but it just,
That Tutankhamun death mask, we haven't got that anymore, have we? Did we ever have
no,
that? I think we
we
had it
never
at
had
one
that.
point. Have we
We
never had
never
that?
had
Has it
that.
always been in the Cairo Museum?
Yeah.
Oh.
So because Cairo and Egypt passed a law quite soon, really, that said anything that you could all dig as much as you liked, but everything that is dug up stays in the country. And I
Mm.
think those sorts of things are because there are still great finds to be made in every country. We haven't found
Mm.
everything.
Mm.
So no, I think there's a strict line that has to be held that, indigenous cultures that it still exist, they should be asked and the conversation should be had. Do you, and you in that situation, I think all those institutions should be saying, we really want to keep this,
Mm.
and make the argument for trying to keep it.
Can we
And
rent
if,
it from them?
you
Maybe.
know,
Ah,
maybe, I don't know.
that could be
I,
good.
I think it gets dodgier if you start to include money,
But
but
the world revolves around money. It's the lifeblood
no,
of human civilization.
no. Um, yeah, so you know how I feel about it, but particularly with the shrunken heads,
Mm.
because the shrunken heads aren't real heads.
Mm.
They are real heads, but they're the real heads of animals, not
Mm.
people. So if you're going to return something, I understand repatriating bones of people, of which that culture still exists. I
Yeah.
don't think as a country you get to say, oh well, all of that is English, we've got to keep it. Because actually borders change throughout the
Mm.
whole of history. And technically the places that these things were taken from were England at that time, if you want to
Mm.
be all imperialistic about it.
Oh, people aren't
Um,
gonna like that.
so, they were our lands at that point,
Yeah.
regardless. But what's bugged me about this particular thing, with the Pit Rivers, is it's an ethnographic museum. So it's about people and their
Mm.
cultures. If we give everything back from that museum that is from cultures that aren't English,
It will
we
turn
just
into
have
a
it.
Wetherspoons or a slug and lettuce, presumably.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't want that. We don't need any more Wetherspoons as is, or a
No,
slug and lettuce as is, right?
no.
Okay, so there's someone to put an important point up. Helen, you're wasting time. You need to be talking about ugly people and ugly clothes. She's put a skull and a pokey out face, pokey out tongue emoji. I think she's under the correct assumption that today we'll be talking about physical appearance and such. Now, this episode is called Pear, or is it Pear? Pear Review, which is to a certain extent going to be a peer review. Okay. Hashtag first trap. Can you educate us with what a first trap is? This is something I found out recently, hence why I had to put it in the title.
You only recently found out about thirst traps.
You know I'm not up with social media. I think it's a social media term. Most of the older people I hang around with, they tend not to be talking about first traps and such.
Sorry, did you see that comment from Jason?
Leave it to a royalist to defend British imperialism. Well, we can whitewash and cover over that by just clicking a button.
I'm just pointing out that I didn't defend any imperialism. What I said was, at that time, if you want to be technical about it, they were our things. If you stop taking away the emotional aspect of these were captured lands, the reason I find that particularly funny, sorry to go back to it, but is because that cabinet was literally called captured enemies. So everything in there was about treatment of your enemy. So that is the most woke thing I have ever seen, for you to delete the cabinet. Because they've not put something new in the cabinet. What they've done is covered the actual windows of the cabinet with blue film that talks about why it's important to repatriate things.
Oh, wow.
So they have left, like as if it was the Twin Towers, they have left a monument to where that thing belonged. Now, that is the wokest thing I have ever seen, of someone making such a statement for the sake of political correctness. Whereas if they were just removing it and putting something else in that place, or find it, or even took photographs and kind of replace that film with what was in that case, or some of the really cool technical ways that you could be talking about what was displayed in that case originally. None of that's happened. We've got a woke argument from the most imperial of imperial cities of the country, fucking Oxford. It's just, do you know what I mean? It's just such the wokest thing. And that's what irritates me more than the fact that they've gone. Is we haven't made this a discussion about something we should be discussing. It has essentially been whitewashed out in the name of this wokeness.
Well, it's fine, Chris. Someone that knows better has made the right decision, you see, and they know they've made the right decision because they're morally justified in the decision. I like the fact that you're very passionate about this. I'm going to just throw something else in before we move to today's topic, which is, if you're talking about obviously giving all this stuff back, and you're saying, okay, we only will potentially even entertain the idea of giving things back to the cultures that actually produced them. So if, I don't know, some culture springs up at a later point in the same area, we don't negotiate with those people because they're really nothing to do with the original ones, So thinking about the current Egyptian government, I suppose, that would be a different culture. They're not really ancient Egyptians, thanks to
they don't
Cleo and her
practice.
gang of Ptolemies.
Yeah, they don't practice in the way that those items are significant to them.
Right.
and that's the thing. It's like I'm not,
Okay.
you know, bearing in mind we were part of every cult. You know, a third of the world was British territory at one point. You can't escape that. That was a fact. Then really should that then mean that any part of the world that's got, you know, British China, and I don't mean the proper imported Chinese stuff, I mean the chintzy Wedgwood, we've suddenly got to call all that back because I'm not interested. It can stay where it's at. Like,
Where do you stand? Well, first, obviously, Jason has chimed in again. The Anglican Church should repatriate Christianity to the Canaanites. Swings and roundabouts. The second thing I would say is where do we stand on these recreationalist cultures and religions, right? So if they've got some people nowadays that decide, okay, I used to be a Christian, now I went into the Wicca thing, and now I'm deciding I quite like this idea of like the Greeks and that, because the statues are ever so pretty. I'm going to now worship Zeus and all that sort of thing. And I don't like the fact that you've stolen these marbles. They are in a more convenient place because they are local to me, but I think they belong in Greece, quite frankly. I can't believe you stole them before the, was it a war or something almost destroyed it?
yeah,
Something
technically
about the
we
Elgin
bought them
marble.
from the Turks just
Yeah.
before the whole place was bombed the shit out of. So technically we saved them, not
How
being
very
funny.
fucking dare you? How very dare you? You intervened. The gods clearly wanted them destroyed.
So
I know
anyway,
that because as one of those recreationists that would be in touch with the gods, that's what the person would say, that they speak for the gods, and such, Where do you stand with that then? So if you've got some, modern person that's practicing ancient, or I don't know, maybe they are some sort of Aphrodite worshipper or something like that, and they don't like the fact that you've got an item on display that isn't clothed, let's say, and they think that it's really outlandish and terrible. You need to give it back from whence it came, even though they're uneducated and don't realize it's a copy. But they need to give it back, give the copy back, fully clothed, fully painted, and such, and say, I'm extremely sorry about that. So whether you've got one of them or you've got, say, a druid, because I mean, they didn't really exist at all anyway, did they? So the closest thing would be the new ones, surely, technically. Can they demand things?
no, none of them
They
can.
can.
No.
Why?
So it's a tricky one for me because I can see what the argument is, and I totally appreciate the argument. You know, a big part of it is about, that now there is currently a brand new museum on the Acropolis, an Acropolis museum. It's not on the Acropolis; it's down the bottom. But there's a new Acropolis museum, and actually, they've only got about a third of what they should have in there. But not being funny, they built that Acropolis museum knowing they don't have the things, and have made it a big political statement to go, oh, well, you could see all these things, but they're currently in other museums across the world. And you just kind of like, yes, where they've been looked after and cared for and appreciated for the whole time.
By
It's not
stuffy geriatrics.
it's
For
not some,
Pear.
no, by millions of people that
Oh
travel
yeah, and
through
the
those
visitors as
countries
well.
every year.
The visitors as well.
Who come through all the way, it really doesn't matter where they're stored from an academic point of view, because we just spend more time living abroad studying them there, like we do with the Egyptians.
What about if it's not on display and the public cannot see it or access it once a year, then you have to give it back? Because there's all sorts of stuff behind in the vaults, isn't there, that people never ever see, that could
Yeah, but
potentially be in a museum. What about that?
if that was the rule, nothing would ever exist in any museum, because they wouldn't be able to show it the other end either.
Well, they'd have to build more museums, I suppose, wouldn't they?
They'd
They
have to
could
have
shut down a few
museums
of
that's
slug and lettuce
humongous.
restaurants and open museums up. You'd love that, wouldn't you?
I'd love that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's sorted. I'm glad we're changing the world. A feisty show at a time. Right. Is that enough education, Chris? We are 20 minutes in now. I know it's not the full half
Maybe.
an hour.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Don't know.
I'll try not to get on my soapbox again. Just
Well,
it irritates me.
We've got 10 minutes and we need to be educational. So you can educate me with what a thirst trap is, and I'll tell you whether
Oh yeah, sorry.
what
Thirst
I
traps.
believe it was in terms of what I've been told it is.
No. Thirst traps is all those photographies that people put on the Instagram of themselves.
I'm
To get
Googling
everybody
right
all
now.
hot and bothered.
Okay. That sounds like the definition. There's a picture with
Yeah.
the definition. A
So-
thirst trap is a type of social media post intended to entice viewers sexually. It refers to a viewer's thirst, a bit like when you're thirsty for
Yeah.
water.
But the idea is it shouldn't be that. The idea is that picture shouldn't be explicit. It
You
just
want more.
it's suggestive.
Like a Pringle. You
For
want
fuck's
to add
sake!
the
Is it
first
the
one,
Pringles
and you're
out again?
The Pringles have come out again. Yeah.
No Pringles, Liam.
Okay, no Pringles. Chris says no Pringles. Okay.
If they were sponsoring us, I'd justify it, but you're not going to just show off a Pringle can for the whole fucking episode again.
What if I got some, some tape and taped around it like they do on those reality TV shows, where if the brand hasn't paid for product placement, they just tape it out. Although you can still tell it's a Coca-Cola bottle by the shape, but still.
Yeah.
Can we do something like that?
No.
Okay.
Because they'd all know it was a Pringles tube.
Well, no, because it might not be Pringles. It might be that little version. Have you tried the little version of Pringles? It's much
No,
better.
but you can tell the difference by the side of the tube.
So Diana says that she calls them Facebook hoe pictures. Okay. Now it says a colloquialism likening sexual frustration to dehydration, implying desperation, with the afflicted individual being described as thirsty. These are the torso pics people take at the gym, right, and put them on Instagrams.
Yeah, but they're the ones that show,
the pouty lips.
No, they show questionable bulges, or they show like cleavage, but not all the way, that sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
Because you can have a lady thirst trap too, Liam. It's not all about the menses.
Okay. Can you have non-binary thirst traps, and if so, what would that look like?
I'm not answering that question.
I think that it would look something along the lines of, you get like those optical illusions where it's black and white. Something like that. I don't know. It would be some sort of optical illusion, I'm sure.
No.
Or is it a old lady or is it a young lady? You know that thing? Did you ever get those pictures? I forget what they're called. Special type of picture where you can see two images in one. So it's like a picture of an old lady, but if you look at it slightly different, it's a picture of a young lady. Grey sweatpants season for thirst traps. Jason likes grey sweatpants, from what I can tell. That's my takeaway from this. Jason's got a thing for grey sweatpants. Fair enough. I like white crew socks. We all know that. But I don't really think that I don't think it would be classed as a thirst trap to go on the JJB Sports page and look at pictures of socks. That's just a fetish, isn't it?
That's a fetish, Liam.
Right, okay. So, are there such a thing as a pagan, neo-pagan, druid, new age thirst traps? Is there such a thing as that?
I imagine that that Witch of Wonderlust probably is thirst trappy for lots of people, I imagine.
Grey sweatpants works. Grey sweatpants. Is this a thing I'm yet to discover? Grey sweatpants. There's lots of people. So educate me on this. What's all this about grey sweatpants? Why did that turn people on? Sweatpants are basically jogging bottoms, aren't they?
Yeah, joggers.
So why grey? What's up with that?
Because they're normally that's the grouping, isn't it? White t-shirt and sweatpants.
Well, grey's a colour, so why not black sweatpants?
Because they generally cut
Blue.
the most dominant colour of sweatpants, Liam, is grey.
Oh, I did not know this. I thought it was black.
No. Black sweatpants are really hard to find, actually.
Are they?
They
sell
are
them
if
in
you
Nike.
they are if
some
you don't
there.
want a brand on them.
Ah. Okay. Enough. Now my imagination has kicked in, the petulant one says. She's obviously looking and thinking about pictures of sweatpants. I wonder if she's interested in people wearing the sweatpants or whether it's actually just the sweatpants.
Oh, just lay across the bed?
Well, yeah, whether she just likes looking at catalogues, and dislikes the ones where there's actually a model modelling them. Just prefers to scroll through. Because I prefer it when they're wearing the white socks. I don't really like it just the white socks on their own. Doesn't really do anything for me. Chris, again, with the grey. No, it's grey. Agree with Chris. Grey sweatpants. Right, okay. Fascinating.
I must say, it's not something that really does it for me.
No. Grey is preferred to maximize VPL, which I know stands for visible penis line. I can understand that. So it's the bulge. So with the bulge, rather than kind of white jogging bottoms or white jogging bottoms doesn't really, it might show up a little bit of shadow. Black doesn't really show up much shadow. So the grey is kind of like there. I can understand that. So it's about the bulge is what Jason, I think, is attracted to. At least I'm getting that impression. Okay. So are there neo-pagan or druidic thirst traps, Chris? Sexy images, the selfies and such. You go like that, yeah, like that.
No, I imagine.
I was told you got to do it like a kiss, but you're not kissing. Like that.
I imagine the Wiccans. I imagine the Wiccans probably have a few, because there are lots of the witchy aesthetic. But then I imagine for the Druids it doesn't exist. The New Ages definitely.
Oh, there's Viking men first traps apparently.
Yeah, there will be.
Thing. No, I'm typing pagan thirst traps in. There's a picture of a horny devil, and that is actually a red-faced kind of devil with horns on. And then it's just coming up with unholy thirst trap Viking and Viking men thirst traps and other such things. I don't seem to be seeing anyone wearing bed sheets at all. Anakin Skywalker's also come up. I don't really know what that's all about.
Well, I imagine it's because he's a bit of a thirst trap.
I don't think that there is such a thing as a pagan thirst traps. I have seen on some of the social media actually that there's warlock and all that sort of thing, whereas someone that looks like they're dressed up as a Halloween costume. I don't think they're a practitioner, but they're often shared with things like men can be witches too, and there's a rather stereotypically attractive man wearing little but some kind of gothic type attire. I suppose that's the closest thing to pagan thirst trap. Petulant one. Liam just found out Grace Wetzplant magic when you taught me about boob magic. I did teach you all about boob magic. Michelle says, put some on, Liam, report back with your results. Okay, I do actually have some grey tracky bottoms, some grey jogging bottoms. I will put them on. I'll take a picture and I'll send them to Beck, like you just said. I don't know who Beck is. As soon as I find someone with Beck, called Beck, I will get their phone number and I'll send them a selfie of me in my jogging bottoms / sweatpants. If you're American, I think that's what they call them over there, innit? I can't think of any good-looking occult bros on YouTube. What about the ladies, though? What about that sex doll one? What video is that?
Yeah, she's Diart Darling, isn't
Oh,
she?
yeah. Dart Darling. Yeah, that's the sex doll one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pagan thirst traps ought to include ridiculous cover art on book covers. Celtic knots and leaves. Michelle says that's a typo, but she said my name is Beck now. Okay, hi Beck now. Hello Beck now. Can we change this where it says Michelle Miller? Can we change that and change the M to a B? Or
No,
does she have to do that?
she has to do that.
Liam, do not put them on. That's every kind of wrong. Well, I wear them to the gym. I've worn them before. I wouldn't go out and buy some special. I mean, I've been out in public with them. I don't really see what the problem is. I mean, it's better than going out wearing nothing, isn't it? I mean, that's chilly. I've done that before. Only in the garden, though. So we've established there aren't really that many neo-pagan / druidic thirst traps quests. Why is this? Why is that? Is it because they've reached a greater sense of enlightenment and they do not care for looks and lust and such? Are they all incels? That's another word I've learned recently.
Well, I don't know in what context you've learned the word incel. But
Oh, it's a big movement of sorts.
Yeah.
I think that's people seem there's always someone to blame, and at the moment it seems to be incels and Liz Truss.
No, I think Liam, I think you've got that one slightly wrong. Incels blame everybody else for why they're not getting laid.
No, I'm pretty sure that they're the
No.
ones that are getting the blame for all the shootings. It's the incels that are doing the shootings.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that is a reaction to them blaming everybody else for why they are. Incel stands for involuntary celibacy.
I know what it stands for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Involuntary celibate. Someone that wants to get laid, as you would say if you're American, but cannot get laid. Even with themselves, Chris, does that count or not? Would they not even touch themselves?
No, I'm pretty sure they touch themselves. And then when they're not satisfied by that, they have to touch a gun instead. That's the point.
I see. Is that bad? Imagine having sex with yourself being that bad that you have to buy a gun and shoot other people. That's pretty fucking shocking, isn't it? Most of them are some combination of obese, elderly, or unwashed. Obviously, context is key, Jason. What are you talking about? Incels? Are you talking about pagans? Are you talking about druids? All of the above? I don't know.
He was trying to get you back on track, Liam.
Please tell us, Jason, what you were referring to as the combination of being obese, elderly, and unwashed. Whilst we talk about that, I asked our good friend, the consultant killer, for what she says a Wiccan looks like. Okay, so what does a Wiccan look like? Okay, because we were talking about this because she said about there's Wiccans everywhere, you know, a bit like Sixth Sense. I see dead people. Well, the consultant killer just looks.
To be fair, she does spend a lot of time in the New Forest. That's where they like to hang out. She spends
a lot of time in the New Forest. She said it looks a lot like the sort of people that you find in Glastonbury, you know, scum and villainy.
Mos Eisley Spaceport. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Be cautious because you don't want to catch anything, obviously. Voldemort was another thing I learned. She said you can spot them because they are pentacle-clad, tie-dye, crushed velvet wearing fat people with horrible hair. That's the quote. That's not coming from me. That's what she said. Now, I understand they're pentacle-clad because they do seem to wear a lot of pentacle-clad stuff. Tie-dye, I thought that was more New Agers, but yeah, crushed velvet is definitely a thing. Right?
I think it's a bit of a Venn diagram, Liam, where there's crossover.
Right. Okay. Because I've Googled Wiccan. Okay, I'll put it in Google Images. Okay. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what I've got. Okay, I'll bring it into a new tab. I think I can do that. Oh bugger! What's it doing now? Right. So we've got Wiccans. Let's just do this. There we go. Can we all see that?
Oh, there's Harmony Nice in the middle there.
Right. So this is when I type Wiccans in, we've got this sort of thing, right? Which is, you know, I don't know whether that's tie-dye, but there's certainly a type, right? There's certainly a type. Okay. And I have to say that they have got pentacles on and such. They are wearing the crushed velvet and that. There's a stereotype to a lot of this. And we're not supposed to be talking stereotypes. Stereotypes are apparently quite bad. But I mean, it's not me, and I don't think it's even the intolerant, the consultant killer. The consultant killer said the words, I repeated the words, and I did some Googling. So Google does say officially on the front of the page, -1 person. Ben, essentially, those are the Olsen twins. I don't know what they're doing on
Yeah,
there.
they're the Olsen's twins. I'm not sure why they've come up.
But essentially, there does seem to be a lot of pentacle-clad, crushed velvet-wearing people with horrible hair and that are rather portly, right? So that is kind of a thing. Yeah, stereotype is what you'd call it.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to do the same thing, right? Because I asked her what New Agers look like, right? And she said that New Agers, again, are tie-dye. They wear a lot of filleted kind of cheesecloth flowy things. Well, when I type New Agers in, I got this sort of thing, right? So to me, they look very unwashed with lots of colors. They basically try to look as, I don't know, what would you say? They want to look like they're kind of live in the forest, but they're extremely impractical, right? So there's a stereotype here, Chris. I'm not seeing any thirst traps, whether on the Wiccans or on the New Agers. I'm not seeing any thirst traps, Chris.
You could probably find them if you looked for yoga instructors.
Yeah, but are they all New Agers, or are they just yoga instructors? Because
most of them are New Agers
that teach yoga, and they're not New Agey at all. I also asked about druids. Okay, and I got a very stereotypical answer for druids. Let's say neo-druids. The neo-druids, right? We got this kind of jazz, right? I mean, there was a KKK as well, but I mean, it is all kind of this sort of thing, right?
Those are all Arthur Pendragon.
Yeah, basically. They no real thirst traps here, yeah. So I thought, okay, rockers are quite hot, aren't they? You know, punk rockers, bad boys, nice guys finish up last. Most of them are incels these days, apparently. Bad boys, rock stars and such, they're cool. What's the closest thing to that we have in the magical world? Well, obviously there's left-hand path people. I typed that left-hand path magic and such, and all I got was basically sigils, right? So I thought I would try and be a bit more specific. I thought, well, what's a big occult organization? Ordo Templi Orientis. The OTL. And I'm getting essentially nerds in cloaks, but nerds in very cheap cloaks. These look like the sort of thing, like it reminds me of the nativity. You know, you do a nativity in school and it would be like really cheap shite. They would make you wear for the nativity. That's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of an occult nativity, right? And there's something that's coming up. Caucasian. There's a lot of people that are Caucasian. Why am I not being able to type in Wiccans and that there's, you know, other types of nationalities. What would be the correct way of saying it? I'm not sure. Races and such. Is that right? I don't know if we're allowed to say
Nationalities
that.
was fine, Liam.
Nationalities, right. Yeah, why is it that there's just fat white people in bed sheets when I type pagan in? Yeah? Why is it when I type druid or neo-druid in, it just comes up with basically Gandalf if he'd let himself go? Basically gay Gandalf.
To be fair, I think part of it is because people of colour who are magical have real culture, so wouldn't call themselves pagan. It would be my guess.
Okay.
And the algorithm will probably work on what they call themselves or what
So
people
I
call them.
need to go on the TikTok, is that right?
Yeah, essentially you need to go on the TikTok.
I will get the TikTok. I'll download it again. I deleted it because I didn't want those Chinese people spying on me again. I'll re-download the TikTok and I'll type in pagan thirst traps and stuff. I'll do more thorough research next time, I promise. If I find any, I'll share it with the group, right?
To be fair, like I said, I think you'll mostly get, even on the TikTok, you'll get the Vikings.
Yeah.
And the acid true people who are essentially just playing dress up, let's face it. They don't have real practice. Well, not the Wiccans don't either, but you know, they don't have any real practice.
There we go. I've done a mashup for you, Chris. So we've got a New Ager on the left. We've got some what is described as Wiccans, but you could interchange that with pagan. And then we have Espen Quain, I believe his name is a fairly famous, somewhat famous left-hand path occultist, right? It's down in the bottom, right? Basically by one of the Wiccan snatchers, which is kind of what I expect when she lifts her dress up. You know, like that Alien film where it goes... I just expect like a face like that to just she lifts up her dress after calling the goddess, and you just go a ceremonial magician's down there just popped out, which funnily enough I could see them as a couple. You know, you've got the lady there, and that's basically her husband, who's probably very skinny, wears color changing contact lenses, and likes to evoke demons and such. Yeah, African tribal religion first trap doesn't really roll off the tongue. Oh yeah, I forgot Children of Cabot or another stereotype. Children of Cabot? I don't know what that is. Is that like Children of the Corn? Children of Cabot. Don't know. It's just coming up with schools now.
Doesn't he mean? Isn't that to do with the Temple of Witchcraft people?
Oh, Laurie Cabot. I think he means the Cabot tradition. It's that thing that came out of Salem, wasn't it? Salem, Massachusetts. Penzak and that. Right. Okay. Yeah. They dress up. They're very stereotypical witches. So they like to wear. Basically, they like to tattoo their faces and wear robes and such like that. Look very, very, very stereotypically witchy. It's fair enough if that's what they want to do, as long as they're doing some actual magic and not just playing dress up. So there we go. So first traps and that. Do we need first traps, Chris? Do they fulfill a role in society?
They definitely do. They get, you know, they get all those married housewives to actually get wet again.
I thought, what, instead of using Vaseline?
Yeah.
Does it save the money on the Vaseline, does it?
Yeah, think of all that saved petroleum.
Oh, God, don't forget the Children of Artemis. Yeah. Maybe I should type that in. Children of Artemis. Basically, do they look the same? Yes, basically they do. They do have a witchcraft magazine, and I wouldn't really have said that there's any first traps on there, but there are people that are let's say, have a healthier BMI. I'm not going to say that that's everything, and I'm certainly not going to say that that's necessarily attractive, but so no. So do we need pagan, neo-pagan, witchy thirst traps in the world or not? No?
No, I just meant thirst traps in general. Keep, housewives wet.
Thirst traps in general are important, right? To stop your
all those
housewife.
grey sweatpants,
If you have a housewife that you're keeping as a pet, to stop her from drying up, like a slug that's gone over a slug pellet or a salt trail, one needs to feed that housewife thirst traps, yes?
Yeah, by seeing all them cum gutters.
Oh, okay. Cum gutters is like the Apollo's arrow, isn't it? It goes down to there. I could get a picture of one up.
No, we don't need to share pictures of cum gutters, Liam.
They are quite nice. I like the kind of V thing. No? Don't do it for you.
No, I do, but it's not appropriate, really.
Okay. What about Venus dimples? Would they be appropriate?
No.
No? That's like the V. That's the cum gutters of the back, isn't it? Basically, well, it is basically. I mean, they're dimples, so they're kind of like little dimples, but they're not. Yeah. It doesn't kind of, and then kind of like a gutter, because that's why they call them cum gutters, I guess, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose. Okay, so we've got another, I don't know, about 15 minutes or so left. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to ask Chris your questions. Write them in the comments and I'll ask him for you. Why is it that you think that this whole thing, that Google stereotypes such things? Because there must surely be normal looking neo-pagans out there.
Well, I imagine there are, Liam, but they're not the ones that are out and about visibly. And you've got to remember that's how stereotypes happen, is when groups of them come together. What do they look like as an average? And that's what happens. Whereas, yeah, you'll meet tall, lanky neo-pagans, and you'll meet large left-hand pathers, I'm sure, but you don't see them in groups. So therefore, the stereotype doesn't occur, does it?
Do you not just see them in groups? Or maybe they are there, but maybe the bigger ones are blocking the others that are stood behind. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's what you're saying, Liam, because you're going to be rude about it.
I didn't really say that, though, did I? Don't think I actually said that.
I kind of feel like while we're filibustering for the questions, I would say that actually there is a magical issue there with a lot of the ones that you do see. And the ones that you do see are the bad practitioners, because largely it'll be those that aren't using their psychic ability properly, and as above, so below, that has a tendency to find people that are unbalanced are overweight. You know, example number A, you know, right here, currently unbalanced, currently rather large. You know, that is a factor that is quite common amongst those that do practice. And I think it's even more obvious with the ones that pretend to practice, because they're not actually doing anything with that energy. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that they are over-consuming to fill on the lack of love that they're not getting from their deity.
They're finding that love from the bottom of a Pringles packet, are they? A Pringles tin. Is there self-esteem in the bottom of there? No, I'm afraid there isn't. It's empty. Completely empty of self-esteem. Like these people are that eat them are often empty of self-esteem. Although I do feel a lot better having devoured an entire tin. But then... So, with regards...
Before you get to that thought, hold that thought.
Yeah. Okay.
Jason makes a good point.
Okay.
In the sense that they could be a modern cult around the buxom Venus figure, and actually there would be from those that were women in those categories, because let's face it, those are the ones we tend to see, because demographically wise, the ones that actually practice outdoors are often the females rather than the men. You don't see as many of those unless we're talking about druids, then it goes the other way, doesn't it? But as going purely on stereotype, you'd have those women argue that they're more woman, you know, because there's more of them. So
you liked that film, American Gods, didn't you? Not that
yeah,
film, that series,
TV
American
series
Gods,
was
right?
quite good, yeah.
Where you've got when people believe in something enough and there's enough of momentum, it kind of creates this tulpa, and that tulpa becomes a god. So you've got like the god that is the internet and so on and so forth. I'm wondering that the image of the witch used to be one of beauty, wasn't it? So it was kind of like in the ancient world, that magical practitioner, they had magical powers and the ability to use potions and stuff. So they were often physically attractive, physically beautiful, gods, goddesses and such associated with magic, physically attractive, beautiful. Now,
and I think not until it was quite a recent thing, really, because you think even if we went back to TV shows in the 80s and 90s, witches was still that kind of sexy, you know, get away from me, you succubus kind of situation, weren't they?
Temptress type shit.
Yeah.
Right. But then you've also, because you've got the good witch Glinda and you've got like the green witch, Wicked Witch of the West, and it was kind of more evil, wasn't it? It's good and then evil. I'm wondering whether there's been some sort of a, I don't know, American God style thing where, because pop culture and people nowadays think the witches are ugly, now all the witches just seem to be fat and ugly. Could that be the case? That is, in fact, the combined energy of mundanes that are, in fact, meaning that witches now are not attractive to the everyday person? Or is it that thing that they invented, gluten intolerancy or something? Could it be put down to something like that?
I think it's self-inflicted, but also I think the glamour witch is probably what they think they look like. I think part of it is probably delusion.
Right. So you think Lady Snake's deluded, do you?
Yes.
She's completely off her fucking rock and crazy.
And she lacks any magical ability, otherwise she'd be able to fix some of this shit.
Everyone loves a teddy bear, Chris, apparently. For sure, Witches of Eastwick were nothing like the Wiccan stereotype. Yeah. Okay. So interesting. Is there power and magic in beauty, Chris?
Definitely.
Explain.
As in, kind of in that part of what we would call glamour, and I don't mean glamour magic. I mean that the word glamour is the word we describe for that is away from that cheap. You know, cheap is not glamorous. Glamour.
But Katie Price is a glamour model, and she's cheap.
She's not a glamour model.
She used to be.
She was.
Yeah.
Then she got big. Then she got big gazongas and was no longer a glamour model.
What was she then? Just a hoe?
Probably. Well, that's when she moved across to kind of not Playboy, but like
Page 3.
Page 3 and stuff like that.
Model. Is that not what glamour modeling is? Oh, no. I didn't know that. I thought that's what it was.
Glamour modeling doesn't show flesh.
Oh, okay.
You can't be a glamour model and get your tits out, Liam. That's not how it works.
You've got to wear what, like a burqa or something?
No. There is a lot of places between burqa and got your tits
not
out.
Allowed to show flesh.
It's a bit more of a fucking spectrum than that.
Right. Okay.
So flesh that you're not supposed to show, you know, titties, ass crack, that sort of shit.
All philosophical shit we're discussing. Yes, Jason, all philosophical shit. But no, I mean, is there power in beauty? Is there magical power in beauty, Chris?
Yes, there's lots.
We know there is power in beauty because beautiful people can use, wrap people around their fingers. I mean, it's been proven time and time again that, if you're physically attractive, you're better at selling shit, and people forgive shit, and people just give you stuff. Like, it's really, really nice being beautiful, presumably. I don't know. I've never been beautiful.
You wouldn't.
I know. I hear tell. I look at the beautiful people out there and I think, I wish I was one of them. Because they all seem to have life so easy. Look at those Winchester brothers. Their entire lives were nothing but easy, were they? I mean, God's favourite.
So yeah, it's one of those. And like Jason says there, that's about beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Yes, lots of things are beautiful, but the point, I think what Liam's trying to say is there power in beauty? And there definitely is, in the sense that, the other bundle that normally comes with someone that is beautiful also happens to be charismatic. And there is that kind of blurring line of grey area between kind of attractive and charismatic. A charismatic person can get away with a lot. A beautiful person that is also charismatic can pretty much get away with murder. So there is something about it that is alluring. And there is something, and I imagine that something is to do with the fact that beautiful people we associate with being crafted by gods. Like there is that kind of perfectness that we have in the Western culture, I'm afraid, from the Greeks and the Romans, in that kind of worshipping of beauty. Whereas in other cultures pre that, not so prevalent, because it's more about symbols of fertility. So in the old days, before the kind of Romans and Greeks, before that, it was about what was a fertile person. So, a woman therefore was more voluptuous, big breasted, that sort of thing, suggests that person is therefore more fertile and more capable. The same way there would be someone that was hyper masculine, is that assumption that they are capable of being more. What's interesting is when you get to the kind of Greek and Roman, when they talk about the penis and how small a small penis is representational, I imagine that is they must have had some awareness of testosterone and what testosterone does. So an excess of testosterone actually shrinks the penis. So, you wouldn't have somebody that has large amounts of aggression, that kind of typical trait of hypermasculinity, hyper testosterone, would probably have a tiny penis. And it's not because they're frustrated about having the tiny penis that they're angry. It would be the high testosterone levels that are probably. So I imagine they, in some way, shape, or form, they must have known about testosterone.
Yes and no, and that, but I mean, it depends. I mean, there's lots of factors in for the tiny penis thing, isn't there? I read a fascinating study about men or boys, technically it would be, that go through puberty overweight. Their penis is smaller, actually makes it smaller because of stuff that's going on through puberty and stuff like that, which was crazy, which was hilarious because obviously people talk about, oh, well, you need to lose some weight, blah, 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 coming from a health coach perspective. And then they talk about, health, and kind of teenagers, they didn't give a shit about that. As soon as you tell them, yeah, it's going to make your willy smaller, they're like, oh, I'm going to start eating more vegetables, which is quite funny. But in terms of beauty on the inside, doesn't beauty inside show outside? Yes and no. There's lots of different reasons. Let's talk about attraction, right? There's lots of different things that make a person attractive or beautiful and such. It's really about having as many of those things stacked in your favor as possible. Was essentially talking about more beauty at that point. So yes, a personality and something on the inside can make someone nicer and more beautiful. But let's be fair. I mean, there is a reason why women don't go for the nice guys. It's because it's just not attractive. It's been proven time and time and time and time again. It's crazy. But there we go. We are out of time. So is that it? Is there any more final words that you'd like to say, Chris, on beauty?
Well,
first
I
track?
would say, particularly from women, but I think it applies to men too. Women fuck the scary big guy, but they tend to marry the puny soft one.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's something that they talk about all the time with all of this like incel shit and that. On the hashtag manosphere is a thing now. It's great. It's fascinating. All of the psychology of men and psychology of women. I got sent down a little. I was going to say I got sent down a hole by Little Delphi. I got sent down a rabbit hole with something that Little Delphi was talking about with some person that counsels or something like that on YouTube. I can't remember what the guy's name was. But I started going on a massive rabbit hole with people about getting like these YouTube people where they give you dating advice and they try to teach you about male psychology. They try to teach you about female psychology and all this and that. It was fascinating. But there we go. That's it. So goodbye, Faustlings. We do the waving bit now, Chris. Remember the waving bit. It comes at the end. That's right.